Chapter 195. Hello Urchin, I have something for you. Heard you were distributing fairy gifts, boss. I'm glad you didn't forget your urchin. Naturally. You have been of great help, and I will always reward loyalty. So, what are the odds that this gift will play tricks on me? Will I be nabbed and carried away by red-capped goblins? Worse, you will serve an immortal monster bent on world domination who will send you on risky errands for only a modest remuneration. So business as usual. Exactly. This is the many blades, a dagger that can extend into a sword. The size and shape of the blade follows your wishes. That's the second knife you give me, boss. It's like you expect me to shive someone. I am, in fact, counting on it. You are an average fighter but an excellent trickster, urchin. I would prefer if you stabbed before getting attacked. This should help you do so. Great. When do I get to practice? Right now. Draw it. Fuck. Language. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Hello John. Miss Ari. You had something for me? A gift I brought back from the other side. I hope you like it. It was difficult to find one that suits you, so I had it made by a winter court artisan. This is the life cage. It will protect your heart and chest without prompt, but it will not spare you from the pain you would have sustained. Winter gifts tend to be double-edged, I am afraid. But it will keep me fighting. So long as the life cage endures, so will you. And it can endure quite a bit of punishment. It is not quite as effective as my armor, but it can fit under the one I made for you. It might seem strange to hear, but I hope you never have to use it. I want to keep fighting, Miss Ari. Until the job is done. I know. Thank you. I will use this for you. I know. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. November 1880, Marquette, Heigl Group Headquarters. It starts with an itch at the back of my head, as if being observed by someone. Someone who would not be the usual massive purple eldritch being. It crawls in my everyday life when I hunt some large alligator and watch behind my shoulder for an invisible threat. A coat, who trains with me when he can decreate his Magna Arca, notes that I am more distracted than usual. Even the safety of Pookie and my art collection fail to distract me from the impending doom. It is inevitable, and there is nothing I can reasonably do to stop it. It is as inevitable and regular as the tide. On a fine night of February, the news comes as I sign on the purchase of some land to the west. Winter still grips Illinois in its icy claws, and I have started a fire in my office's hearth just so the ink would not freeze. The nostalgic smell of wood smoke mixes with that of fresh coffee in a rather pleasant perfume that fails to distract me. Mrs. Starr's bell chimes with the solemnity of a death knell. Yes? I grumble into the horn. A gentleman here to see you, he says. Send him up. Right away, ma'am. I brace my hands on the desk, waiting for fate. He knocks on the door soon enough. Come in, Mr. Bingle. Miss Raynaud? Or would you prefer Delaney? You can call me Alexander, if you prefer. The latest spawn to grace my shores has grown a lot in the past years. Gone is the fresh-faced English lad. Now a powerfully built frontier man in well-fitting if worn clothes stands with confidence, poise, and a glorious mustache the likes of which I had not seen since his glorious ancestor Cecil Rutherford Bingle graced us with his presence. Miss Delaney or simply Ariane will do. I prefer consistency when it comes to pseudonyms. How are you, Alexander? Fine. Or rather, as well as can be expected in my endless struggle against the injustices of this world. The frontier is a cruel place where laws and customs only apply so long as someone believes they might be caught. Why, just last month, I settled to listen to his passionate retelling of how he uncovered a ring of unscrupulous cattle farmers who paid bandits to rob rivals only to absorb their stolen herds into their own. I have followed his adventures from afar, of course. I may have inflated some of the bounties he collected in the past with some concerned citizen on bonus when times were lean, as a sad bingle is a risky thing indeed. I may have also provided medical help in the form of a traveling healer mage once or twice. Alexander stops when Mrs. Starr comes to deliver a cup of coffee and some floral tea for him. But I digress. Oh, Jasmine. My favorite. How did you know? It is part of my nature to know things, I mysteriously reply. I just pay talented investigators to keep an eye on him. He does not need to know that. Impressive as always, Miss Delaney. But then, perhaps you can guess as to why I am here? I can guess he is here to ruin the opera season, which is supposed to open in 3 days in Meluson's domain with the Pirates of Penzance. I had saved the best seats. Now I will have to miss the premiere. The knave. No, Mr. Bingle, I cannot see your thoughts. I am sure we both find that knowledge very comforting. Ha ha, indeed, though that would be most impressive. No, then please lend your ears to a terrible tale of corruption and death. Do you know of the Black Hills? Oh yes, what a fiasco that almost was, I reply, thinking about that dreary place and the battles that took place there. We had to silence the discovery of a certain precious metal to stop settlers from moving in too fast. We? Who is? You call the Battle of Little Bighorn almost a fiasco. I never liked Custer, I reply with a frown. Glory hound. Not like George Henry Thomas, my favorite by far. The one you worship, rest his soul. We are getting sidetracked, young Bingle. The Black Hills are an Indian reservation in the Dakota Territories due west of here under the control of the Lakota, Dakota, Sioux or whatever you fancy calling them. They have a relatively unified social structure and military. Local resources are timber and gold. Gold? Alexander replied, alarmed. Yes, gold. Keep it to yourself. Due to the, presence of a curse among recent Lakota allies. It would be best if large-scale conflicts were not to happen. We have managed to acquire and monopolize a lot of the land directly around them to create a buffer, and this shall hold for now, but publicize the presence of underground resources and all bets are off. I lean over the desk and stare right in his eyes. You will not do that, will you? I ask. Of course not. I will be no party to treaty breaking. Of this you can be sure. Focus, young Bingle, and tell me of death and corruption. Yes. It all started in the fall of '79 while I was traveling north to claim the bounty for an escaped fugitive. On a fine morning by a river, I came upon Johnny the Butcher bearing a sheriff's star. Now, you may not have heard of this dark and twisted individual, but know he has slain 7 women across the frontier in his murderous spree, and that I believed him hanged. Thus you may imagine my surprise when I not only found him alive, but also representing a cause I had dedicated my life to. Him. A scoundrel whose dark soul would not find redemption in 1,000 years. Alexander scowls and closes his hand into a fist. Few things seem to genuinely anger the Bingles, yet those that do send them into a spiraling rage even I would fear. Dear Johnny thought his new position and the posse at his back would give him the right to taunt me. He dared believe I would fear touching him. Fool. I could not stand that a symbol of justice would adorn a chest hiding such a shriveled heart. I would have died rather than let such a desecration go unpunished. Yes, yes. I understand. My apologies. You are not at fault, and yet I lose my temper in front of you. In any case, I opened fire on those mongrels and slew them to the last man. Trying to interrogate Johnny as he breathed his dying breath led to more taunts, and I learned the identity of the man who had allowed him to turn a new leaf. It was none other than a judge by the name of Zacharias Ramsey, based in Ortonville at the edge of Big Stone Lake. A judge. I had to go and investigate, and so I went there with Honore under the guise of an escaped outlaw from Texas. For a moment, his light English accent turns into a surprisingly convincing Texan drawl. Heard some good things about y'all fine fellers. Impressive. And then? We were recruited and discovered the truth. Judge Ramsey recruits outlaws as enforcers and lawbringers, then sends them in patrols into the Black Hills where they pillage camps left and right. When the Lakota braves inevitably fight back, he moves in with his full force and clears stretches of land which he then sells to illegal logging operations. I realize that this is a serious issue. It will only take one fortunate prospector trying his luck in a nearby river for gold deposits to be discovered, and then we might be too late to catch the rumor on time. I have to warn Nico that it might be better to let one mining consortium on some lands and let them police settlers than a tide of illegal miners. In any case, Judge Ramsey certainly found himself a sweet, cost-free arrangement. His only loss would be disposable ruffians. Unfortunately, we were found out before I could find undeniable proof of wrongdoing bearing the judge's stamp. The snake is canny, I'll give him that much. We were found out when we resisted an order to slaughter women and old folks in a deserted camp. We managed to flee the ensuing firefight, and I have since then petitioned the marshal office and even the army. It was in vain, however. My complaints have never reached a sympathetic ear despite my best efforts. I suspect the corruption runs deep. Well, of course it does. We are relying on it. The hearts of mortals are ever filled with greed. We know this, I agree. Yes, the mortals. Indeed. In any case, I shall not rest until we clear this infamy. Given the extremely challenging circumstances, I can think of only one solution. I personally can think of several. I could contact a few people and have the judge removed in 2 weeks. I could also have him murdered in 1 or 3 days if I do it myself. We need to strike hard and shine the light of the law over this den of corruption, whether the local authorities want it or not. The gaze of the entire nation shall fall upon them. In order to attract such an intense glare, we are left but with one choice. We are? The government has moved some of its gold reserves to secure locations inland in case the eastern seaboard is attacked, including a secluded fort in Minnesota right next to Ortonville. We are going to steal gold from the western United States Bullion Depository. A few metric tons should do. It takes me a few seconds to remember to close my jaws. If Alexander notices the fangs, he makes no mention of it. I beg your pardon. I have a plan, but I could use your expertise, because none of us know how to use explosives. We will return the gold afterward, of course. Why yes, obviously, dynamiting a gold reserve. Such an incredibly daring endeavor, young Bingle. Unless you have a better idea, of course. Nope. Truly, we have no choice. Then will you help? How could I deny you my help in such a grand challenge? You were right to come to me. Together, we will grab all that gold and make away like thieves. And return it eventually, Alexander tells me with a warning tone. Yes, the pursuit of higher purposes is its own reward. Hear, hear. How brilliant, how inspiring of you, Miss Delaney. We truly are kindred spirits. Blessed was the day when my esteemed grandfather met you. Nothing moves me like justice itself. Well, for me it would be high-yield explosives, but I do not wish to dampen his spirits. Will you come with me then, or do you need to prepare first? Just a few hours should do. Give me a rendezvous and I shall join you with supplies and, I believe, 2 of my allies. You can count on me. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Good evening, Safar. I am going to rob the Western Bullion Depository. The image in the mirror does not move. I know the spell is working because of the way the silvery picture shivers like when sending ripples over the lake, and so I wait for the inevitable reply. Goodness me, what a way to start a conversation. Could you perhaps not? I must. And what outlandish reason could possibly justify such an absurd action, Alexander Bingle. Safar sighs, an unusual sign of annoyance. Ah. It has been a while since the latest adventure for him. I have been monitoring his progress. I suppose it is preferable to channel him than let him run amok. My thoughts exactly. Although I frown, suddenly considering a new thought. Is there a reason why the godlings always return to me? Do you know? Or do our kin also engage with them? I know of a coven that keeps ties with the godlings of love, or romance, or whatever you see fit to call them. No one else has chosen to approach them and no one else will. Once bound, you may become, and please forgive the term, a recurring character. As for finding out the logic behind their working, you know what happens to those who get too close to them for the wrong reasons. I regret to inform you that as far as the Accords are concerned, you are the resident expert on godlings. It goes without saying that you have our full support to handle the issue and bring it to a satisfactory and flaming pigs-free conclusion. What a subtle way to tell me that they wash their hands off the problem and leave me to handle those shenanigans. Also, I do not have a flaming pig problem. Those were all just coincidences. Did contact Isaac. I believe the Rosenthal monitor the bullion reserves and their contents. It would be wise to find out what the consequences would be and how to offset them before you pull the proverbial trigger, Safar continues. Certainly. I attempt to contact my sharp friend, but I find that he is currently in the middle of a meeting, which is fine. It gives me time to think about what to do. I do not have any pressing matters to attend at the moment, and it has been some time since I last worked with John and Urchin. We shall have a coven moment all together with our nightmares. It will be fun. I also need boots. And a felt hat. For a moment, I entertained the possibility of pants. Do I dare? No, not while there are some who will recognize me. John would be fine, but not the rest. No, I shall not cross that last line. I am a respectable member of the community now, not some savage hellion Imena dragged around for her assassination projects. Oh. I shall compensate this loss with a generous acquisition of guns and explosives. There is always a need for explosives. We will also need 2 secured carriages. I take notes with a quick hand to have everything prepared by dawn until Isaac has his mage open the channel again. Ariane. I believed you reached out to me? I am involved in yet another binglery. My condolences. And how can the consortium assist you in this terrible ordeal? He asks with a bear's crinkle of amusement around his eyes. I am going to burglarize the Western Bullion Depository and quite likely escape with a fortune and gold ingots. Ah. Yes. Isaac sighs deeply, the burden of a stable US dollar exchange rate heavy upon his shoulders. Why can your strange friend not find us some forgotten gold mines and ancient treasures filled with unknown artifacts? He does not need my help for that. So it is. What are the chances that the gold could be found again and recovered? I consider the options. Bingle is fundamentally a champion of justice and a good egg. Of course, the fortune will eventually find its way back into the hands of the law, as it should be. The story would suffer no other conclusion. If it were ill-gotten gains, there is a chance they could end up at the bottom of some unplumbed chasm, but government property is usually returned very high, in my opinion. I shall trust in your Bingle expertise, my dear. Very well. I will warn our associates and prepare to manage the crisis. The media will love it. Oh, do note that the Supernatural Task Force has agents on hand. There might be wars. Excellent. We make some small talk and promise to catch up on this development later. Truly, a welcome distraction. My preparations are done long before the sun returns and, soon after, we are on our way. Asterisk. Gentlemen, I shall set up a few rules for the next operation for the sake of anonymity and also to provide a good story. We are not here as problem solvers. We are here as facilitators while Alexander Bingle completes his task. Remember that the most important way to work with godlings is to provide a good narrative, and barring that, to leave them alone, for whatever fate manipulates the world around them takes interference very poorly. Yes, my Zari. As you say, boss. The first rule is that we will not show any ability that could not reasonably be displayed by a human. From now on, there will be no shows of strength or agility a mortal at the top of the world could not achieve. Does it mean I must miss? Urchin asks. The thought clearly displeases him. It means you may strike arms, fingers, and weapons rather than eyes every time. Can I use the strength I had as a mortal? John asks in turn. Of course. It would be strange if your power did not match your imposing physique, dear John. Just refrain from derailing any locomotives with your bare hands. I understand. We will all take our nightmares and ride alone as much as we can. You two still scare mundane mounts. Asterisk. The edge of the Black Hills is so dense with forest I am tempted to explore the region by myself later. Rocks and lone elevations jut out from the woods like old teeth cracked by eons of wind and rain, their rocky flesh in turn smooth and brittle. The moon is beautiful tonight. Bingle's team spreads over the clearing we have reached, leaning against trunks and sitting on stumps in a picturesque fashion. A low log cabin propped against a cliff awaits us a few steps away from a merry campfire. Temperatures are glacial. The mortals bleed out their heat with every puff of frozen breath that escapes their chapped lips, and yet they still stand with casual grace as if the deep cold did not bother them. Alexander has expanded the ranks of his gathering of misfits since the last time we talked, not that I am in any position to criticize. I recognize Honoré, his Haitian second-in-command and expert knife-wielder. There is also Felicia, the pointy-nosed sharpshooter who even now cleans her rifle with confident moves. I am utterly jealous that she has the confidence to wear pants while I do not, but no, I have made my decision. Maybe I shall buy a pair and try them in private. Yes, that sounds delightful. Next to the pants wearer stands a hulking brute with scar-covered hands named Bill Hannigan. He plays the role of the bruiser, and he plays it with both efficacy and gusto. His blue Irish eyes follow us as we ride in and settle on John, recognizing competition when he sees it. The last member of this eclectic group is Whistles at Dawn, a grim Lakota shaman of some power whose family was killed by trespassing poachers. He is the group's most mysterious member and possibly the only one to recognize us for what we are, if his spiking heartbeat is any indication. Both Bill and Whistle joined the group after the Steelborough firefight. We meet in the flesh for the first time. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce an old family friend, Ariane Delaney. Some of us met her before. She will be providing precious help for her next endeavor. He was not joking. You have not changed at all. Felicia gasps as she stands. She takes a few steps forward to confirm what the light of the fire hints at, but stops at a respectful distance, suddenly afraid. "But I so knew, that is the truth," Honoré agrees. The others tense and I smile amicably. "Gentlemen, and lady, I assure you that the curse is not contagious. At least not easily," Urchin whispers, and I use a small liana to throw a pebble at the back of his knee. "I am here as a friend and ally. You have nothing to fear from me while we are on the same side." "And when we ain't?" Bill grumbles. "Surely, Mr. Hannigan, you are not considering defection, huh?" I ask. The poor man's expression turns into a rictus of fear. "Yes, you big oaf, I know who you are. My friends. My friends. My family has known Miss Delaney since 1805. I trust her with my life." The Lakota mumbles something in a tongue I do not recognize. John answers in the same tongue to everyone's surprise, including mine. He patiently exchanges a few sentences with the shaman until the native slowly nods and sits back down, pushing tobacco in his pipe with shaky hands. John," I whisper. I speak Ojibwe. I told him we were honor-bound to assist. He believed me. "I see. Well done." Well, yes," Alexander continues. "Right, introductions." The three of us listen to Alexander briefly introduce his minions, all of whom I have detailed files on. We politely nod and smile, then our time comes. I allow Urchin to go first. "Urchin, knife wielder and poker player extraordinaire. At your service," he greets with a bow. "I'm John Doe," John greets with a rumbling voice. He does not elaborate. A small shrug shakes the mainsail that passes as a shirt over his mighty frame. Massive muscles slide under buttons, making them bob up and down like buoys over high tide. I allow the deafening silence that follows to last for a few seconds before continuing. "And my name is Ariane. Mr. Bingle perhaps mentioned that I am cursed and was well acquainted with his grandfather, the illustrious Cecil Rutherford. My friends and I do not like the day very much, but the night likes us. A word of advice, do not play card games with Urchin, and do not arm wrestle John." "And what should we not do with you?" the girl asks. "Ah, a perfect introduction." I grab the big iron at my side and flip the heavy revolver around a finger, then two, using tricks Sheridan and a few others taught me. The mortals watch the deadly implement twist and jump and dance and twirl in my expert hands. To finish, I turn in my saddle and let the gun land back in its holster. "So, dueling. Got it," the girl finishes in a cool voice. "Why, admit you lots are cursed." "Feels suspicious to me," Bill Harrigan growls. He is right to be wary. I believe he represents the human norm. The Bingles and their immediate allies tend to be a little naive, I find. "I do not lie to Alexander or his close friends," I reply with a shrug. "The others have no need to know." "You say you knew his grandpa? Ain't you a little too fresh around the ears for that?" "I am considerably older than I look." "God won't like that, I bet." "I would not know. We are not on speaking terms." As fascinating as this all is, Alexander interrupts. We are on a schedule, so I will remind everyone of what matters here. I have called upon you fine folks because I trust you, or in the case of Miss Delaney's guests, I trust the one who brought them. We have all proven ourselves countless times against the cruelties and injustices of this world, and now the time has come to do so once more. Cast aside your doubts and remember that we are all servants of good regardless of our past and nature. United in this most noble of purpose, we cannot fail. Close ranks, stand shoulder to shoulder, and we will achieve the impossible as we have before. The corrupted judge will fall. We will make sure of it. Now let's head inside so I can tell you more. The godling of adventure turns without a doubt in his pretty head that we would follow, and, naturally, we do. Our nightmares ride back to the forest as we move in. I end up walking side by side with the nervous Felicia. She smells of anguish and old sweat, the poor dear. Red welts mar her pretty cheeks. I make a note to get her a scarf of some sort to mitigate the damage, and also to have a talk with her. Reassure her that I am not after Alexander and she can return to her unrequited love while Bill himself burns with passion for her. Ah, the group dynamics of mortals. Always amusing to see from an outsider's perspective. An ambitious player could set Bill against Alexander with a few words and test that old friendship of theirs. Love and jealousy could achieve what battles have failed to do. Not me, though, I have better things to do. The log cabin turns out to be warm and dry, which makes me wonder what the group could possibly have been doing outside. Perhaps they were feeling cramped? In any case, we gather around a central table and the map pinned upon it. Two separate structures occupy it. The first is a sprawling complex surrounded by a wood palisade labeled Fort Dearborn, while the second is an isolated square surrounded by empty space and, beyond that, another palisade. The word depository was added with a blue pen. Alexander points at it once we are all settled. Right. This is our target, the gold bullion depository. 2 floors and a relatively small surface, but what interests us is the vault underneath. A single set of stairs leads to a corridor, and then the vault gates proper. 2 safe combinations are required to open the secured door, but unfortunately we cannot obtain one of them because the holder is in another state under constant guard. Hence the need for dynamite. I frown. This all sounds terribly wrong. I decide to speak up. Hold on. Even assuming we can use explosives to open the gate, the resulting explosion will be noticed. You cannot move metric tons of gold away if you are under fire from an entire garrison. That would normally be true, but the vault is built deep into the earth. It was carefully dug out. With the military base far enough away, they should not notice. This means you have a plan to subdue the local guards. Yes. A non-lethal one. Yes. Given by your inside men, I add. Alexander blushes while the others shift their postures, looking askance at the brain of the operation. Seldom has the term fitted less than now. I was going to introduce everyone tomorrow, but I suppose I can mention him now, since there is no cause for theatrics anymore. We do have a Manning, yes, the very same who shared his knowledge with me. His name is Willie Adler, and he will get us through the guard. Aha! With a name like that, he has to be an antagonist. Willie Adler indeed. It appears we will be backstabbed and left behind. Oh, the humanity. Was the man called William or Willie Adler before and got drawn into our tale, or did the force behind Godlings create him from nothing? Was he born and raised for the sole purpose of becoming a secondary character? Sometimes, the unthinkable power behind the Godlings scares me. How will he do that? Honoré asks with suspicion. He is a guard himself. In fact, He is a high-ranking member of the Mint. And before you ask, yes, I questioned his motives. Mr. Adler wants to demonstrate a flaw in the current safety measures used by the depository, the very flaw we'll be using ourselves. You see, the defenders on site number few, barely a dozen, because they rely on alarms to rouse Fort Dearborn's garrison. Take out the alarms and the depository is defenseless. Relatively defenseless. The alarms number 2, the first is a hand-cranked siren on the second floor, and the second is a buried telegraph cable linking the depository to the fort's headquarters. We must disable both before reaching the gold. The defenders could shoot at us. That would be heard, I say. Good point. We will have to be fast then. Whistle says he has a concoction that can disable grown men in only a few seconds. We merely have to sting them before they can pull the trigger. They will wake up without consequences. We employed this devious yet effective method before. How do we get in? Let's go over the plan step by step, Alexander says. At 6:30 in the evening, our team will arrive by train at the stop facing the depository. We will take the spot of a weekly, regularly scheduled delivery that Mr. Adler cancelled on his side. The sun will have long set by then, so people of Miss Delaney's proclivities should not be affected. Thank you kindly, I say. We will be disguised as guards. Mr. Adler will be present as well as a few of his fellow guards, who will assist us in moving crates inside. But of course, I have read enough tasteful fiction to recognize we are being made into patsies. Ariane of the Nerari, a trop. Disgrace. While we move in, Whisper and Honore will dig out and disable the telegraph cable. I wish you could come with us, gentlemen, but the local mint does not allow the employment of members of the Sioux and Negro race. I am sorry. Not your fault, monsieur. The same goes for you, Felicia dear. I fear no disguise would allow you to pass for a man. While I can manage through a careful binding of my chest, I fear our sharpshooter's bust may not be so easily hidden. In a real situation, a mortal with my body would struggle to pass as well. I walk differently, not to mention other wardrobe issues my dress currently masks and that I would rather not utter here. Once again, Alexander proves his inexperience with duplicity. Ah, truly he is still young, and so are his associates. No matter. A simple illusion will allow me to blend in. Once we have gained access to the first floor by presenting falsified documents, Bill, John, Urchin, myself, and Adler's best fighters will move from room to room and disable the guards without raising the alarm. Shouts might not be heard below ground, but gunfire and the siren will be, so we must move with diligence and precision. Remember not to kill any of the guards, or wound more than their self-esteem whenever possible. The crates will contain ropes which we will use to secure them. After this is done, we will gain access to the vault through the same means. We have to go through a series of gates to reach the vault door, and we will use our numbers to hide the pacification of the guards we come across. Mr. Harrigan will make sure they may not call for help without harming them. Alexander continues with a pointed look at his hulking follower. Yeah, don't worry. I will be gentle, the man replies with conviction. After all of the guards are secured and both of the alarms are gone, we will move them to the top floor, where the explosion will not harm them. Then Miss Delaney can work her magic with the dynamite we will have brought in the crates. We will rush in once the vault is cracked and carry as many ingots as we can, though no more than 2 stacks. We will carry them to the train and escape from there. After we have put some distance between us and the fort, we will unload the gold at a safe house and, from there, Mr. Adler will share its location with the relevant authorities. I have prepared an envelope with my plan and sent it to General Hall in Illinois as an extra measure of safety in case we are found out, so we can prove our intent was good. And thus the law will have his name when the prize inevitably disappears and the note is taken seriously, not to mention that a crime made in the name of good is still a crime. Ah, the sweet naive child. He has not yet been backstabbed enough. Oh well. There is just one last minor hurdle. We must acquire the dynamite from the Pattersons, who have yet to deliver it. Alexander finishes with a frown. Oh, let us do it. I offer without mentioning I have brought my own explosives. We are retrieval experts, Urchin adds. And I can use this opportunity to ascertain the quality of the goods. It would be a shame if they failed, I continue. Especially since I have no intentions of using them. Only an absolute donkey would believe dynamite sticks can achieve anything except collapsing the building on our heads. The vault doors have to weigh literal tons. It would take Loth's expertise to pierce through them without specialized equipment. No, I will be using my safe-cracking skills and spells, since Isaac mentioned mages and there are bound to be wards in place. As for the explosives, I wonder what they will eventually be used for. Oh, I cannot wait. Chapter 196. The powerful man sat at his desk. To his right, the snow-covered meadow led to a frozen fence from where small icicles hung like diamond ornaments. Guards in blue uniforms and cloaks fought the chilly wind with courage, struggling not to shiver while puffs of smoke rose from distant chimneys in the city proper. Inside, however, the room was toasty. A merry fire crackled in the hearth, and the powerful man waited for his cup of tea to cool down to a more consumable temperature. He felt safe and secure enough, ready enough, and so he summoned the expert. The chime of a bell. The door to his office swung on oiled hinges, then closed swiftly. The expert was a cool and collected man, a dependable man. No one could doubt his commitment, especially not those who had access to his military profile. The powerful man wondered if the expert kept this pleasant, mildly serious expression when he killed. Could be. Please, take a seat, Mr. Zen. Should I send for drinks? He asked. No need, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, the expert replied. Very well. I will cut to the chase. I have ready available reports on supernatural folks. God, I still cannot believe this is real. I would like to know why information about the last 3 is so sparse. The powerful man lifted 4 files from the desk. One of them was thick and clearly annotated with markers, errant pages and loose sheets of notes. By comparison, the remaining 3 would barely suffice to write a single speech. Sir, the notes are presented in such a way that a reader would understand the facts and hypotheses related to each race at a glance. As for the availability of said knowledge, a bit of context might make the reason clear, if you'll allow me to explain. That's why you're here, Zen. What's going on? The expert smiled gently in a way that didn't reach his eyes. He leaned forward on his chair and placed his elbows on the varnished wood of the powerful man's desk. After mages, the next most understood race is that of werewolves. Please note that werewolves are not a separate race per se, but rather a curse that changes those who bear it at a fundamental level. You have read their abilities and weaknesses? Indeed. Silver. What a peculiar, nonsensical thing. One day we will have to slay demons by injecting them with mercury. The expert knocked on wood, and the powerful man paled, anger smothered by a fresh wave of fear. Let us hope you are not a prophet. As for werewolves, you may recall there are 2 kinds, feral and controlled. Please note that we did not pick the words tame or civilized on purpose. Controlled is the correct word for what they are. Controlled by whom? Each other, to an extent. Most of our information comes from remnants of the Order of Gabriel, American branch, as well as first-hand witness accounts of the action at Black Harbor. Controlled werewolves appear human until they turn into their beast form. Except for a few quirks, they would pass enough to merge into society as isolated farmers and hunters. Until they gather, at least. My God, and we cannot tell it all? Order knowledge says they will show signs of heightened aggression. They will turn during a full moon, whether they want to or not. Nevertheless, an isolated community might go undetected for decades. The powerful man sat back against the backrest, reeling from the revelation. It was his duty to imagine the worst-case scenario in the hope of preventing it, and now his mind churned with possibilities. What stops them from racing across the country, turning everyone they come across? A tide of beasts no one can stop. Zen, I hate judging people according to what they might do, and I understand most of those folks didn't ask for such a treatment, but surely, it would be better to just end them, don't you think? The proposal hung between the men, carrying with it the bothersome mental stench of gray morality. I understand we almost had such a situation, sir. The ferals ran rampant half a century ago. Many disappearances and beast attacks of the time can be attributed to them. There was no beast tide because they were hunted to extinction. And not by the Order of Gabriel. Someone took them out? Yes, sir. Only a few incidents remain here and there, and they are quickly handled by a mercenary group calling itself the Red Cabal. Witches again? Yes, sir. With guns. God help us all. Zen, you dodged the question. Tell me why we can't just gather 4 cavalry regiments and send them after the werewolves. First, we would have to locate them, and it has proven suspiciously difficult. The scouts tend to go missing. Documents are lost, or waylaid. People forget to share their orders. Priority missions take precedence. Finally, we have yet to secure a budget for 10,000 silver cartridges. Are you saying someone is protecting them? Covering for them at the very least, but I will return to that later. Next come the Fae. We have no first-hand accounts of their presence, but they appear to be genuine visitors from another world. Fairy tales are true. Some of them appear rooted in truth, yes. The Order of Gabriel's knowledge on the matter was surprisingly complete because they managed to capture a few of their weakened numbers and interrogated them thoroughly before termination. The fabric of our world weakens them until they become thoroughly harmless. Another world, eh? Do you realize what it means? The Bible does not mention it. If God created the universe, why does Genesis not mention? I am not here to discuss cosmogony, sir. Perhaps the other worlds, yes, there are several, perhaps they are mentioned in some text that the Church has hidden. I would not know. It no longer matters because the Fae are gone. The sentence hangs in the air with all the finality of an extinct species. That was more than morally ambiguous. Someone had exterminated a race? What do you mean, gone? Dead? No, sir, we have confirmation from a private intelligence network and 2 image groups that the Fae disappeared on the same night almost 10 years ago. They are just gone. Do we know what happened? We suspect. There are rumors that members of the third race left our territory shortly after. Magic was most likely involved. The third race, yes. The vampires. Your report mentioned they are currently public figures in the German Empire. I would not go so far, but their presence is known. The official title is written or etched, Knight of the Night. We live in strange times when monsters can walk out of children's stories and wear the guise of aristocrats. Both men fell silent. "Your report contained a lot of mabes," the powerful man eventually said. Once again, context is important. Knowledge on vampires is sparse because those who seek it tend to disappear. Even the Order's prodigious resources only scratched the surface of what can be learned, and they did it at great cost. We know there are less than 1,000 on the American continent, probably even less than 500. We know they feed on blood, fear the light of the sun, are repelled by crosses, and can be taken down by destroying their hearts and heads. What we also know is that they are incredibly dangerous. Are the reports accurate? Faster than a galloping horse? The expert winced, hesitant to go on. "Sir, I believe the situation is much worse. Vampires do not age. The old ones are so strong they can destroy buildings with their bare hands. Witness accounts of Black Harbor speak of figures moving faster than the eye can see. Sir, I need you to understand. In 1812, a lone vampire defeated a mercenary troop 300 strong and killed them to the last man, as well as most of an island's population in a single night. This was considered as fact by the Order. The reason why we cannot determine their full capabilities is because no one has ever managed to test them. I would advise considering them completely unstoppable at night." Jesus. Unstoppable, you say? "Yes, sir. Even by the army." The powerful man took a gulp of tea and winced when the hot liquid scalded his tongue. The expert politely ignored the incident. "I hesitate to ask, but can those monsters be defeated?" the powerful man finally asked. "Yes, sir, I believe they can," the expert said with conviction tinged with sadness. "In theory. In practice, no one would be ready to pay the price. Vampires were at the origin of the initiative that stopped the Scourge Hive during the Civil War. They handled the werewolf threat. They erased the Fae, or enslaved them, or exiled them perhaps. We have credible reports that they were at the forefront of the Austrian offensive against the living dead incursion near Warsaw. More importantly, we have never been able to find signs they would act, and they have proven their ability to mobilize large resources in short order, including governmental ones. The truth is that they see us yet we do not see them. Fighting them would be fighting blind against a foe that already has the key to our homes." At the mention of infiltration, the powerful man felt fear grip his heart. The expert had been shown a respect for the vampire threat that bordered on admiration. What if? "I am not theirs," the expert said, cutting into the silence with a decisive gesture. He grabbed for his collar and displayed a cross. "My devotion is to the nation. I am merely being realistic. Even if we successfully unleashed the general populace on them, and that is no guarantee it would even succeed, the two of us will not live to see the fruit of our labor. We will be cut down before the purge starts." "You think our citizens would not fight against inhuman creatures from the dark?" "Our citizens drink to forget the Civil War and dream of a better future out west, sir. Few would be willing to throw their lives aside to fight ghosts. At least, I believe so as a veteran. I am not comfortable leaving our nation at the mercy of an unknown party, especially not one of— what are they, cursed humans?" "Yes, sir. The Order claims that vampires turn humans into other vampires. The process is apparently very slow. If humans can join them, then we have to consider that some may go to their side to be granted power and immortality, sir. A tempting offer for some individuals of great influence and a deep awareness of their own mortality." The powerful man considered the difficulty of fighting an enemy both hidden and well-connected. Between this and their mind-altering abilities, What is preventing them from taking over? I am not sure, sir, but I surmise they are too few in number to control the world. They probably prefer staying hidden and influencing events from the shadows. How do you explain their actions over the years? Stopping the hive and controlling the werewolves, if this is what happened. The expert hesitated. Sir, I would like to point out that my previous answer was a conjecture, and this one will be one as well. I believe the vampires were at the origin of the Red Cabal group of mercenaries given the suspicious way their funding moves. As you may know, they are the largest bounty claimers for rogue mages and animals of unusual size. It might just be that they consider our planet and its inhabitants as their backyard. The powerful man blinked, unwilling to accept the conclusion. So what, man, are we their pet? No sir, their prey. Once again, the room fell silent. The wind howled outside under heavy dark clouds. It was going to snow. If we cannot eliminate them, we might need to open a channel of conversation. The supernatural task force might not like that, sir. Some of its elements have displayed great vehemence in their desire to cleanse us of all magical beings. And I do not see them purging the United States of 100,000 of its constituents. The last time I checked, I was nominated to represent the people, not them. The mages will not be exterminated. Now, enough of those madmen. How would we proceed and what precautions should we take to contact the vampires? The expert did not have to think for very long. Carry a cross with you and pray when you meet them and your mind will stay yours. Of this we are sure. As for making contact, a simple inquiry sent to the SDF will do. The vampires will learn of your wish, sir. The SDF is infiltrated. Undoubtedly. HMPH. Very well, I shall do just that. Please make sure you stay around Washington. I may need your assistance in the immediate future, Mr. Zen. Of course, Mr. Secretary. The expert knew a dismissal when he heard one. He stood quickly to leave the powerful man to his writings. It only took a couple of minutes to finish a simple note, then the powerful man sent it out after only the briefest of hesitations. He returned to his other duties, distracted. Sometimes, his gaze would leave the pages and travel to the world outside, with its bored sentries and frozen world. The fire in the hearth felt much weaker than before while the world outside was large, cold, and the gale did not let up. The powerful man sighed and joined his colleague for their daily meeting, but his heart was not in it. He found his mind drifting to reports and rumors, to the few illustrations the confidential files contained. An aberration of man and wolf standing upright, claws extended like so many blades. A beautiful woman with red hair over a heart-shaped face fighting scourge drones with a sword, her body covered in an antiquated black armor. She had a blazing fire in one hand. That one had been drawn by a colored troops corporal after the battle, and could not be unreliable. And yet, it had been so breathtakingly vivid. "Are you all right, sir?" The powerful man looked up to his assistant, a serious young man with sharp eyes. "Not feeling myself this evening, Lucas. I believe I shall head home early and take the dossier with me." "As you wish, sir. I will have the carriage ready for you." The powerful man sighed and returned to his office, now cold. He put on his coat, hat, scarf, and gloves with careful attention, not least to avoid being scolded by his Annie for risking sickness. Outside, night was falling quickly. He greeted the guards by their names and climbed into the prepared carriage. When he was settled, he knocked on the front panel. "We can leave, George." Silence. "George." The door of the carriage opened and a young woman rushed in. The carriage left immediately after she closed the way shut and before the wind could push flakes in. Oh, goodness me, what a weather! Windy, windy. The powerful man could only stare at the strangest of intruders. She was short and dainty, the heavy green dress and cloak barely hiding her small stature. Pale blonde locks escaped from her fashionable hat to artfully frame her beautiful face. A light pink blush spoke of the frigid temperature, and her blue eyes sparkled with excitement. The powerful man noted her high-pitched, slightly accented voice. English, perhaps? What was the young thing doing here? She felt so young and innocent. Or maybe not. For an instant, he saw something old and calculating behind the frilly demeanor, then it was gone just as quickly. You may have the wrong carriage here, madam. Oh no, no, Mr. Secretary, I believe I am exactly where I am meant to be. After all. Her voice grew low and cold, so very cold. You called for us. The powerful man did not scream. He did, however, press himself against the far panel while a hand searched for the door handle. The vampire sat back on her side and smoothed her dress, chasing away the errant snowflakes. She granted him a politely interested smile. But it's still day, he protested. She did not reply. She just waited. Are you perhaps not one of them, then, but a servant of sorts? The woman slowly extended a delicate, glove-clad hand. The powerful man noticed that the extremities were quite sharp, as if they were hiding claws and not nails. The cross on his chest, a gift from his late father, warmed up. The man reached for it through his scarf, and when the piece of silver was revealed, it was shining a deep blue. The vampire pulled back her hand and massaged the middle finger. The carriage smelled like ash for a little while. The vampire shrugged in a deceptively human manner. He found the gesture disturbing because it just felt so natural. We would not insult you by sending an underling, sir. My name is Safar. I represent the Accords. And you? Command your kind. I am one of 3. Relationship with human authorities falls within my purview. If you wish, you may also meet our lawmaker. I believe you two may see eye to eye on many issues. And the third? The powerful man asked without thinking, so peculiar this whole situation was. Oh, our herald of war, the Hand. She is terribly busy at the moment, so perhaps later? The powerful man shivered while his imagination conjured visions of unspeakable deeds. Asterisk. Are we really going to steal poorly made dynamite from a bunch of bumpkins? Urchin asks with cautious annoyance. I tut loudly to express my deep disapproval. His understanding of burglaries has proven terribly lacking. First, we will not steal it unless we have to. We will try to negotiate for it first, using old-fashioned discussions. Second, it will become important later. You do not plan on using it. I do not, therefore the story will find a use. It would never waste perfectly valid ordinances. If you say so. We know we will be backstabbed. Surely, a little explosive comeuppance is only fair. I hum under my breath as we move on. The path we follow leads us through dense thickets of pine trees, their branches heavy with snow. The scent of sap and needles pierces through the crisp note of ice. Sometimes, we catch sight of the moon through an opening in the canopy while the branches bend under the weight of crusted ice. The earth is old here, its bones bare and weathered by time. The Pattersons have made their den under a raised geological formation I hesitate to call a hill, since it looks like a bundle of femurs frosted together after some ungodly feast. It looms over the makeshift plank edifice, a grisly trophy caught in a millennia-long fall. The den itself lets out sickly yellow light through uneven windows dug haphazardly through the front wall. From a certain angle they bear the semblance of baleful eyes from an alien predator. It makes me miss the spheres. We cross an outer palisade as I commit the view to memory for later painting. Crates and rusted remains of cages and other ravaged implements dot an inner courtyard I will only name as such because pigsty does not quite fit. A dog barks from inside when it catches our scent, carried by a frigid wind. Whispers of conversation die down and the curtain moves on the nearest window. I am honestly impressed they managed to get glass here without breaking it. I know, however, how they afforded it. The entire place smells like alcohol, the bad kind. They make rotgut or moonshine or whatever they call the abominable swill they distill out of 2 apples and a bucket full of sawdust. Boss, I think they might not agree to let us just have the dynamite, Urchin says. I agree. If one dodges taxes with such brazen confidence, who knows what manner of depravity they will sink to? Murder is a lesser evil by comparison, I reply. We may have a problem, he continues. Indeed, the Patterson estate is a home. We will not enter without a proper invitation. Inside, several male voices hush each other as if the clamor of their hounds would let anyone ignore our presence. I let Metis take a few steps back while Urchin and John move on with practiced ease. The tall man's massive fist slams on the solid door like a ram, threatening to pop the hinges. Mr. Patterson, we are here for the dynamite, if you would kindly give it to us, Urchin says in a loud yet perfectly polite voice. He has picked on a slight upper crust accent, a good wager. Some ruffians answer better to harder and nastier people than themselves, but others fear the unknown city behemoths. With Urchin's current garb, the thuggish approach would not hold water. Don't know what you're talking about, a voice sounds from within, testing us. This is the Patterson house, and you have dynamite for Mr. Adler who already paid for your services. We are here to collect. Is that right? I don't recall being paid. You got money? This would be the proper time to leave or prepare for the fight. I quietly dismount and walk to our left, from where I hear the shriek of groaning hinges. The locals are not exactly being subtle. John turns to me and I nod, confirming that under the current rule to act as competent mortals, one might reasonably expect to be ambushed by a band of isolated aggressive lawbreakers clearly asking us if we are worth robbing. And hear the growls of the dog the approaching party keeps on leash. Honestly, they are not even trying. I remove the pearl-handled revolver from its holster and hide behind a rusty cage while John creeps along the wall with a dexterity that belies his size. We find a party of 3 plus a dog, 2 with knives and 1 with a coach gun. They are men of various sizes with beards and stained, ratty clothes. Altogether, they might have one intact denture, but I would not bet any money on that. I feel insulted. I also feel grateful not to be downwind. The lead man carefully leans along the side wall to peer at the entrance and finds John's grasping hand, then the giant smashes his victim against the wall hard enough to dazzle him. I shoot the dog who falls with a yelp and the coach gun handler in the arm. At this range and with the light of the windows to guide me, I have no qualms hitting my targets. I would start missing on purpose at a range greater than 9 yards away, but not before. John punches the remaining knife wielder and we have ourselves 3 prisoners. Get up, John says in a bold voice while I tot at the wounded lad as he goes for his revolver. Do that and I'll shoot you again. A kid? No, a woman? Get up slowly and show me your hands. You fucking bitch, you killed Nero. I cock my gun, the distinct click enough to convince my newest captive to hurry. The three stooges line up with hands in the air except the idiot applying pressure to his wounded arm. "You cocksuckers! Henry? Henry, are you all right?" a female voice screams from within. "I'm alive," the lead idiot mumbles, chastened. "They ain't much, just th." Before Henry can share confidential information, John backhands him in to silence the screams of protest inside. "Leave him alone." Urchin gestures. I roll my eyes and pick a watch with a timer from a hidden waist pocket, starting it. "Looks to me like you have what we want and we have what you want," he calmly declares. "You fuckers, you're dead. Dead. You inbred degenerates always think you can pull a fast one on your betters. Get the dynamite out with no tricks or I'll start cutting toes. Henry, you stay put. You fuckers better get off my land for I shoot y'all full of holes." "Yeah, you tell her, Mama," another voice says. This one has much less confidence. I notice that one of our captives is reaching for a pocket and I step on his hand. The cry of pain riles up the besieged family. "You stop that right now." "List here, you dumb twat," Urchin replies, "I'm going to come in and punch the teeth of you and your crotch monkeys if you don't get us our fucking due." "I'd like to see you try, fucker." And I stop the counter. 29 seconds. "A honest score but not your best," I inform Urchin. It did sound like an invitation to me. John steps forward and kicks the door. He does not kick it down, he kicks it forward with a decisive boot perfectly placed near the handle. Both the lock and hinges give up at the same time, the heavy piece of wood finishing in someone's nose. The deafening din of cracked bones and demolished furniture soon follow in a symphony of violence. A heavy body smashes through a window with a yelp and lands on the ground. To be fair, he was already that strong before, Urchin tells me while I contemplate the prone form of Mrs. Patterson with strands of gray hair escaping her filthy bonnet. A shot goes off but no one screams, at least not immediately. John emerges with two more people held under his prodigious arms. One of them nurses his broken fingers and the other, a shiner that will turn out quite spectacular if he lives long enough. "Right, I think we have wasted enough time with the likes of you. Where are the explosives? And don't tell me a nice thumper or I'll start collecting body parts," Urchin says. "Don't tell him nothing, Henry," says the woman as she picks herself up. Urchin sighs, grabs her by the scruff of her neck and shoots her ear off. A deafening screech follows the detonation, with the matriarch's hearing now indefinitely impaired. At least the Pattersons show more sense now. They whimper and plead. Sometimes, I do not quite understand the pride and stubbornness of some mortals. One should know when they are desperately outclassed and work with the flow instead of against it. Ah well, if they were smart, they would not have found refuge here to begin with. "I'll tell you, please don't hurt Ma," Mr. Shiner says. I follow him inside to a trapdoor barely hidden under a tattered carpet. The crates are sealed, a note dating the manufacture of its contents to only 3 months ago. There are no obvious traces of humidity damage, and the nitroglycerin has yet to weep from their cardboard container. All good. Everything seems to be in order, I tell Urchin as I step out, a crate held with 2 hands. We line up the Pattersons away from their home. They shiver in the glacial temperatures but that is fine, I intend to remedy the situation very soon. Of course, and since you tried to double-cross us, I believe a small quality check is in order. I say, rummaging in the crate to pick one stick, only to realize there are no detonators. "Where are the blasting caps?" I ask. "The what?" Henry asks, terrified. The blasting caps? The primers? Tiny mercury fulminate or black powder charges at the end of a fuse? The man's utterly bovine lack of understanding gives me the answer I need. This cretin sends us to grab ordnance from minging wallopers, I honestly and objectively remark as I grab a spare cap from another pocket. It pays to always have extra caps. And the daft twat forgets to order primers. I swear I'm surrounded by utter bampots, amateur as the lot of 'em, might as well ram the vault door with their thick hides. Boss, you are having a loath moment. What? Oh. Yes. Where was I? Ah yes. Quality check. I finish making sure everything is done and light the fuse of the selected stick, tossing it inside the family house. What are you? Wait. No. The stick detonates beautifully, sending the mortals tumbling on the ground. Pieces of wood shrapnel rain on us, and for a moment, I realize I broke my rules by not taking adequate precautions. A mortal would have been more careful about flying debris. Ah, well. I signal John and Urchin that they may feed in the confusion, and we soon leave the Pattersons with their partly demolished estate, dazzled, hurt, but alive. You are quite generous with them, Urchin remarks as we ride away on our nightmares. I tend to be merciful when in the vicinity of a bingo. It would not do for their allies to be too bloodthirsty. I would also have condemned a child to death by killing them all. You would have? Urchin asks. A cellar dug under the main building housed their distillery, and a child hid there while we fought. I falter in my Magna Arca. To leave an isolated child in the wilderness with such cold weather may lead to her death with the shock of utter loss. In this case, respecting my own code while abiding by the spirit of the Binglery came with the same decision, thankfully. Nothing truly abnormal has happened so far. We are mainly here to fill the role of the safe breakers. At first, we will facilitate the story. Only once the intrigue has bloomed into a full blood-soaked high story will the benefits become obvious. We just have to do our best to remember that secondary characters die. So stay focused. Yes, boss. Should we take additional precautions, Miss Reed? I have forces on standby. No need to panic now. The most important part is to let the story run its course. And remember, it always ends with a bang. Does the base have pig pens? Urchin asks. You shut up right this instant. Tope continued.